Success. When I say the word success, what do you think of? How do you define it? No matter your answer, success is something important. It evokes ideas of grandeur and importance. Yet, for a word that is so powerful in today's society, it has a plethora of different definitions. Some of you may define success as earning tons of money. Others say academic achievement, popularity, social standing, or even how many followers a person has on social media. No matter what you think, the definition of success is a matter of personal opinion. To some of you here, I am the poster child of a green school success story. I excel academically. I'm an artist and an athlete. I am the student who does it all, despite being neurodivergent. A great example of what this school can nurture in a student with different learning needs. Right? What if I told you that that was all a facade? That for every accomplishment I am praised for and congratulated upon, hours of commitment and effort go unnoticed. That behind every perfect test score, every A+, behind my 1590 SAT score and the 5s on my AP exams, behind every beautiful piece of artwork I create, is an untold story of pain, suffering, and dedication that borders on obsession. The people around me have turned a blind eye again and again to this truth because they didn't want to see it. They hoped that if they just didn't acknowledge it, that it wouldn't exist. Facades are only so powerful because we let ourselves be fooled by them. In reality, every mask has its cracks. Embroidery is the definition of the facade. The intricate, beautiful stitches hide hours and hours of tedious work. The back of even the most exquisite embroidery is ugly. It's littered with tangled knots, loose threads, bare spots, and hidden mistakes. This two-faced nature of embroidery reflects my own story. My story is a two-sided coin of success on one side and pain on the other, which is why I chose embroidery to help express my story. I first came up with this idea 2 years ago, watching the Greenstones. At the time, it wasn't really an idea or a plan. It was just an inkling, a starting point. Over the months, but it took form. February of 2024 was when the final shape of this piece emerged. I was sitting in class so stressed out over my lack of an idea for a greenstone that I could barely breathe, when the idea just popped into my head. It was so vibrant and clear that it seemed almost real. Drawing is not my greatest skill, so I had to use an AI image generator to try and help turn the ideas in my mind into a physical image I could use. Unfortunately, AI kind of sucks, so the image it gave me wasn't anything close to what I wanted, and I still had to use a digital painting app to help it fit my vision. After all of that work, the final reference image, what you see here, still wasn't perfect, and I was still going to have to improvise a lot, even more than I normally have to. In August, I started the planning process. I tested dozens of different fabrics, and I spent hours with my mannequin perfecting the design and drape of the fabric before I made any final decisions. I spent an entire week making the pattern from scratch and then cutting out the individual panels. I drove down to Denpasar multiple times, trying to find threads that perfectly matched the colors of my reference image. Eventually, I had to buy 250 different threads from Tokopedia just to find one color that apparently did not exist on the island of Bali. And even though I did my best not to cut corners, as what usually happens when I have a deadline, I was limited by my experience on big projects like this, the time I had, and the materials I had on hand. And while this is the best planned project I've ever done by far, I still ran into so many challenges. Once I started the embroidery process in October, almost every week, I ran into a problem that had me cursing my past self for my lack of forward thinking, but it didn't stop me from continuing to make the same mistakes. Despite all the setbacks, despite the fact that almost every day I really questioned whether graduating was worth all this effort, I kept working. I spent over 400 hours across 9 months hunched over my embroidery hoop to create this piece. I stabbed my fingertips with a needle too many times to count. I made both little mistakes that could be brushed under the rug and horrifying blunders that took days to fix. I learned, experimented, made changes, and improved. I used 5 different stitch types and 26 different thread colors. I embroidered over 60,000 stitches into an area of fabric the size of my hand. I did all of that to create this piece that tells my story in a way that words cannot fully explain. This is going to be displayed here after the greenstones are finished. If you want to take a look at it, it's a lot easier to see the detail up close. At first glance, this piece is relatively simple. It's beautiful, it's colorful, but it's simple. There's a human heart embroidered in the center, the colors ranging from the darkest of reds to the palest of blues. Blooming flowers grow from the heart, each one representing my brilliant, attention-grabbing successes. But if you look just a little bit deeper, you see the dark side. Gleaming barbed wire wraps around the heart, digging into the delicate tissue. Every time the heart beats, the barbed wire causes more damage. People like to tell me that I'm lucky to have grown these beautiful flowers, that I must be such a talented florist. Just like people like to tell me that I'm lucky for all the things I have achieved, that I was just born smart. But they don't see the whole story. They don't see that for those flowers they so admire to grow, for those successes that they so congratulate to exist, the heart must beat. And every time it does, it gets closer to tearing itself apart. But if I want to escape that pain, if I want to take off that barbed wire, free myself from its iron clutches, I will also lose the flowers. I will lose the successes that I worked so hard for. And then I will be nothing more than me. Nothing more than a bleeding, injured heart. And that might kill me too. What if I told you that I spent every day in heart racing, palms sweating, mind-numbing terror of others' judgment, real or imagined? That my mind is in constant turmoil, spinning pain and fear from nothing, that the slightest thing can send me spiraling into a pit of despair and self-hatred. That I spend every day fighting tears, kicking my shins until I bruise just to stop those treacherous tears from falling and betraying the truth. What if I told you about the nights where I watched my own blood drip onto the floor, the crimson gashes that I carved into my own skin, the only outward sign of the storm inside my head? About the months worth of nights spent awake, studying into the wee hours, burning my arms with candle wax to keep myself awake when my body gave up and finally insisted I sleep. I was using the pain all so that I could just read that final page. I could do that equation that I needed to do. That I could study just a bit longer so I could get 1 point higher on that test. What if I told you that of all the things I hate in this world, and there are quite a lot of them, bigots, billionaires, tofu, losing, the thing that I hate most of all is myself. I'm not telling you this story for pity or sympathy. I'm telling you the story because I have something I will probably never have again, something most people who are mentally ill do not get. I have a stage and 20 minutes of your undivided attention. And I am using it to tell my story so that every single person here today knows that suffering can hide beneath even the most picture-perfect facade. I'm telling my story so that you guys know that there are other people who, like me, have their pain permanently carved onto their body, and we deserve to tell our story. I'm telling you this because there are millions of neurodivergent people like me, and we are trapped in a world that doesn't understand us. I'm telling you this because today alone, 1,991 people have committed suicide. ADHD, MDD, ASD, SAD, GAD, NSSI. No, that wasn't a creative reinterpretation of the alphabet song. That was a list of all the acronyms that I have been diagnosed with. All the disorders that make my everyday the way it is. And I'm more than just these disorders. And I can't explain my entire life in 20 minutes. But I can give you a taste of what it feels like. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is chaos. It's living with a mind that never obeys you. My mind races, flipping through 1,000 useless thoughts before I can hold on to that important thing that I needed to remember. I forget everything. Or I remember too much. Yeah, I'm so glad that I know every element of the periodic table and every capital of the world, but I do not remember why I came into this room. I stare at a blinking cursor on the screen for hours, fighting myself to just start writing. But my body does not obey. I reread, re-listen, and restudy everything because the noise in my head never stops. I use forests worth of paper writing to-do lists and planning out my day to the second, just hoping that I'll actually get what I need to do done. I fill notebooks with highlighted, annotated, and summarized notes. I make flowcharts and homework tracking documents, and I play 2 different songs at once to drown out the noise. None of it ever cures me. But I am terrified of failure. And to me, failing is getting a B. So I work twice as hard. I work into the night when everyone else has gone to sleep. I sacrifice my already meager social life, my happiness, just in the pursuit of those grades that ultimately don't matter. Was it worth it? Major depressive disorder is a weighted blanket that I can't throw off. It's so heavy that some days even speaking is difficult. I fight to function normally, to get up and go to school or do that thing I need to do. But the exhaustion, it's in my bones. I have good hours, even good days. There are moments of light and of happiness. But I'll know they'll fade. That's the hardest part. That you know that the pain never goes away, that there's no escape. Autism spectrum disorder makes me feel like an alien in human skin. Everything about me is wrong. Not a lot, just a little, just enough to make people uncomfortable, just enough for people to notice. I don't get the jokes or the rules or the social codes. I mess up my words and my gestures. Body language doesn't exist. I can't understand what everyone is talking about, even though we're speaking the same language. And no matter how many times I get it wrong, I can't seem to learn how to fix myself. The world is too bright, too loud, too much. I don't understand how the rest of you aren't bothered. I don't understand how the sound of clapping doesn't tear at your brain. I don't understand how those mosquitoes and that itchiness doesn't make you want to tear off your own skin. But I can't. And not just because I physically can't tear off my own skin. I have to hide it. I have to put away that alien and pretend to be human every day. Because aliens aren't meant to exist. Social anxiety disorder means every day is a fight with the suffocating clutches of fear. The slightest of things, and I do mean the slightest, a glance, a laugh, a whispered conversation, makes my chest compress as my mind races through every single mistake I've ever made. I spend all my time with half my brain focused on what other people think of me, convinced that every single thing about me is a defect that others are noticing and laughing at. And when I mess up, it's like the roof is caved in. My mind screams, every muscle tenses, and my throat burns like I've swallowed lava. So I retreat. I stay silent even when I don't want to. Because silence hurts less than the searing pain of shame. Generalized anxiety disorder means I'm always running through every single terrible outcome in a given situation, no matter how ridiculous it is. I spend hours awake in bed fighting the irrational fear that a tsunami or tornado will hit my house in Ubud. The slightest bump of turbulence on a plane has me convinced it's about to crash. And I can't go in the ocean because no matter how many times I tell myself that logically there are no sharks, there are no man or jellyfish, or blue ring octopuses, or stonefish, or riptides, or impending tsunamis, my brain will not listen. I just want to say, enough is enough. Just get in the ocean. It's not that hard. But that's the thing about fear. No amount of logic will ever overcome. Non-suicidal self-injury is hard to explain. How do you explain to someone who has never done it how you can be in so much pain that your solution is hurting yourself? Part of it is that it's addictive. Pain of all types releases endorphins. So your brain slowly learns that it will make you feel better, if just for a little bit. But that's not the whole story, because biology itself insists that we avoid pain. It's just instinct. So why choose it? I have self-harmed for many reasons. I have self-harmed to punish myself for some imagined mistake. I have self-harmed because sometimes I hate my body so much that I feel that it deserves it. I have self-harmed because sometimes that's the only thing I can control in a life that feels destined to fuck me over. I have self-harmed because sometimes doing damage to myself makes me feel strong. I have self-harmed because physical pain is easier to understand than mental pain. I have self-harmed sometimes just to get out of the constant numbness. The number one reason people think people self-harm is for attention. I have not self-harmed for attention. Because from when I started self-harming at 12 till today, 5 years later, this is the first time I have said it. So to anyone who calls self-harm attention-seeking, consider this. Even though most people who self-harm hide it, those who don't, imagine being in so much pain that your only way to express it, the only way to ask for support, for love, for help, is to cause damage to yourself. Then maybe, just maybe, those people deserve that attention you so accuse them of seeking. For most of you, minor injuries are painful and they're stressful, but they're not terrifying. You have access to hospitals and doctors, and you know it. That is not always true for me. On that day that I cut too deep by accident, I was not rushed to a hospital. I was not rushed to a hospital where they injected me with anesthetic and stitched me up while someone held my hand. Instead, I sat on my own bathroom floor, towel clenched beneath my teeth, and I stitched up my own skin. After that, I got changed and I went to football practice, like I do every day, like it was a normal day. How? Why? Fear. People often question if I'm actually mentally ill, people who don't know me, because I seem capable, right? They don't understand how I could have depression and yet do all the things that I do, how I can have ADHD and yet get good grades. The thing that motivates me to overcome my mental illness is just enough to succeed the way I do, is fear. Fear of failure, fear of losing, fear of getting a B. When I meet adversity, when fear kicks in, I always choose fight over flight, even when it would be so much smarter to flee. I chose fight on that day when I stitched up my own skin because I was afraid. I was afraid that if I went to a hospital, people would find out, my parents would find out. I was afraid that I wouldn't have an explanation when someone asked me why I wasn't at football practice. My mentor once asked me something that changed this speech completely. When she asked it, this speech was just what you've heard so far. Doom and gloom, depression. Not nice. But this changed it. She asked me, "What are you trying to champion with this speech?" My immediate answer was kindness. Maybe you expected something different from doom and gloom Ace who insults people. But I fully believe that kindness can change the world because I have seen someone do it. Kindness is the solution. I hope you take more than one thing away from this speech, but if you do, let it be this. You don't need to be able to find a magical cure for mental illness to help people. You just need to be kind. Because I have seen kindness turn tears into smiles, pain into pride, and fear into determination. I have seen someone do that with nothing but a warm smile, a listening ear, and a wealth of kindness. This person is not mystical. This person is not a character from a book or a fairy tale. She is Ibu Harriet. And Ibu Harriet is the person who has shown me the power of true kindness. She has shown me how easy understanding is, that all it takes is an open mind. She has shown me that understanding is the first step to empathy, that empathy is the first step to kindness, and that kindness is the first and most important step to creating a better world. A world where kids like me don't need to bring a blade to our skin to feel better. A world where students don't need to damage their health and sacrifice their sleep for academic success. A world where mental illness is taken as seriously as physical illness. This can be more than the hopeful fantasy of a 17-year-old. This world can be real, but only if we all work together to create it. This world can be real, but only if we all make a conscious choice every day to be understanding, empathetic, and kind. Thank you, Ibu Harriet, for all the light that you have brought into this world. And thank you for being with me and with so many other students from day one. Thank you, Ibu Jess. Without your incredible support, badass editing skills, humor, and compassion, this speech would not exist. Thank you, Pak Jeff, Pak Dave, and Ibu Dian, for inspiring me to love learning when I had nothing else to love. Thank you, Mama, for always believing in me and my ability to do this Greenstone, even when I didn't believe myself. Thank you to my whole family for always supporting me in whatever way you could. Thank you to Star, Sierra, and Louie for reassuring me when I was sure that my entire speech was garbage. Thank you to Jaya for being my son. Thank you to everyone who's had my back, who has supported me and made time for me over the past year and a half. There are far too many of you to list here, and I'm already almost at time. And finally, I would like to thank depression, anxiety, autism, ADHD, a lack of self-awareness, a crippling fear of social interaction, a lack of self-worth, body dysmorphia, and my medication, without which none of this Greenstone would be possible. Thank you.